I should set my phone to stun.
I think mine's on too.
Oh, look at that, I got a call on it, just when I
Good
set it to
idea.
stun.
The cell phone.
Nobody calls me anyway, but just in the interest of looking important, I put mine, take off the sound.
One second,
7 o'clock.
Okay. I think that's a good way to open
Full at least.
it. Throw down the gauntlet, can you make water?
You got more attention.
I think it wasn't.
All right. Oh my God.
Call order the regular meeting of the
What's the
Coastside County Water District Board of Directors for Tuesday, April 10th, 2018. Okay, can I have the roll call, please?
Of course. Director Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Coverdell.
Here.
Director Reynolds.
Yep.
Director Glassford.
Here.
President Feldman.
Yes. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. I think we're shredding.
Oh, it'll just keep unraveling.
You sound like your mother, actually.
No, I did it with a
Whoops, that
sweater.
was
and it went
unfair. You
bad.
sound like a parent.
Call for
Sexy.
any public comments? We have any green sheets? No? Okay. Hearing none. We'll go on to the first item, which is the consent calendar. Are there any items that the board wishes to discuss or take off the agenda at this point? Hearing none, we'll take a vote.
We got a
Or
motion. I'll
acceptance.
move to accept.
I'll second it.
Take a roll call vote.
You want a roll call, Bob, or you want to just?
Oh, I by acclamation.
Catherine, is that
No,
a
you-
legal procedure?
You can't do that because
acclamation?
Patrick hates that.
Is that right? You can't do that?
Patrick's not into
Patrick's
acclamation.
not here.
You don't have to do
caught you
roll call, but
totally
you
off
can,
guard.
you
Can
should
we
do
do
a vote.
acclamation for the minutes?
Oh, no.
Let's do what
Director
Joanne says.
Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Coverdell.
Certainly.
Director Reynolds.
Oh, yeah.
Director Glassford.
Aye.
President
Yes.
Feldman.
Yes.
Thank
Okay, thank you.
Patrick's away. We get-
Any meetings
Yeah, I think when
attended or director
Patrick's away, we
comments?
should run amok.
Any meetings attended?
Yes. I went to the Water Now Alliance meeting, which is a group that meets, I guess we meet quarterly, to try and look at forward advances in municipal water. And their interesting thing on this one was the use of bond money to fund conservation programs. And it was an interesting discussion. The reason it was really interesting is because they showed how it costs you less money to do it that way than using cash. Apparently, there are 24 pages of code in the California Code of Regulations that allow us to do it. There's apparently 3,000 pages of other codes, and nobody looks at this little segment. They brought in the director of City of DC Water, and he was explaining that he had raised the water rates 17 times, a tripling of his water rates, and his goal and mantra throughout that protocol was to get the consumers excited about why and how he was raising the rates, because it was showing he was doing such a good job improving the infrastructure. It was fascinating listening. I promise that I'll bring the information in little pieces so that we don't get carried away. But I did learn a lot, and I did feel it was good information.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, water reuse was a featured, everybody was talking about it.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Other meetings? Comment?
I did a little snow research in the High Sierra, And I can tell you that, I haven't seen the latest report,
Right.
because they were only at about 57%, I think.
I think we're
April
state,
2nd, yeah.
yeah, 34%, I think, of statewide average for April.
No, it's in
It went
my
up.
staff report.
Oh, whoops.
Okay.
But I can tell you, it looks a whole heck of a lot better up there.
And I did go to Boston, and they're fine. I mean, there's gonna be plenty of water in the San Francisco system. I mean, it's real, so, it's not gloom and doom, and Metropolitan spending $11 billion to suck us dry, and take all of our water. There must be water in California, so it's not gloom and doom.
Okay. So you went to a meeting.
Yeah, I did, it was, but
Okay. I didn't get that, that's why.
by the time I sit here, the Bosca information is pretty stale.
Yeah, but it's always interesting.
Yeah.
So, no.
Most of it is closed session, so
Okay.
I can't divulge that. Earlier snows were wet or high in water content. So while
Okay.
they don't measure that high, and then rains came through and did melt them, but overall, the moisture content was plenty to fill
Great.
all resources. So it's not an issue.
Things are copacetic.
Yeah, yeah.
The San Francisco report didn't show up in time for the,
No, but.
Okay, I'm just checking. Yeah, I
I
didn't
don't
see it
know
either.
if the general manager.
It came today.
Yeah.
oh, okay, so.
No surprise.
No
There's they're not asking for any conservation. They're saying that
okay, they're saying it's picked up last.
customers'
so, yeah.
wise use of water is encouraged. They have plenty of water. 100%.
Okay. Any other comments? All righty. We don't have to take a vote on that, I guess. General business. Item A, resolution amending the Coastside County Water District Personnel Manual.
So we
Turn it over to Mary.
have a minor item that we want to amend in the personnel manual, and since we want to change the personnel manual, we always have to get a resolution. So this is one where we wanted to make a minor change on the certification pay and for backflow. We wanted to recognize there are two positions for backflow, and also we wanted to not limit how many people could get these certifications. I mean, we're not having our guys, running out and getting certifications, but it is something we recognize, and the backflow program is very important to us and growing, and we need to make sure we have the expertise on staff. So the impact is, we have one that we need to add, so that would be an extra $1,200 a year.
So I should get $100 monthly bump for being a backflow and cross-connection specialist associated with the district?
If you volunteer your time.
Wow. Doubles my pay. You are welcome to put me down as a cross-connection and backflow specialist for the district. No, as the district person, not as somebody working in the field, but to make sure the work is done correctly. Right, Captain?
I just don't think we can pay you.
No, I don't do the backflow work in our district, because that would be. But if we need to have a certified holder as part of the district, that I can be.
Oh, if you need to have,
Can you check his liability coverage, please?
It's $2 million.
I just want to be sure
My
it's
wife says I'm
adequate.
worth a fraction of that.
okay,
I
so
want to be sure it's adequate.
getting back on track here, does somebody want to make a motion to?
Oh,
accept?
yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve this.
I have a second.
Yes, do we have a resolution?
The motion is,
To
Yes.
adopt the amendment to the
It's
manual.
following the staff report, is the resolution. Right here.
No, I know
Oh,
that.
no,
I was
we don't have
looking-
the number
No
yet.
number yet, okay.
okay, there's no number on it. Resolution amending the Coastside County Water District Personnel Manual. Okay, and you'll have a number for it.
Yeah.
So you've,
I'll make a motion that we amend the Coastside County Water District Personnel Manual.
How about your motion could also include your adopting the resolution?
It says amended.
His
you're
first
adopting.
You're
You want me to
adopting
adopt it too?
the amended.
Well, I'll amend it
There's
and
been
adopt
really
it.
important meetings lately. This is small potatoes.
I'll second whatever he said.
So,
That will adopt
okay,
It's on-
we'll-
it's
the
on.
resolution to
we'll
amend.
vote, I guess.
Thank you.
Oh, we do get to vote.
Yes.
Go.
Yes.
Are you happy with that?
Yes.
Okay. Inspector Michelson,
Yes.
Vice President Coverdale.
I'm really not sure what we're voting on, actually. Do we go-
Yes.
Yes.
Resolution to
Director
amend.
Reynolds.
Yep.
Director Glassberg.
Aye.
President Feldman.
Yes.
Thank you.
They always word it
That was
clearly
hard.
right there in
I
the
thought that was easy to say.
That was work, wasn't it?
Item B,
for this.
quarterly financial review.
So we've ended the 9 months ending March 31st at year-to-date revenue being $778,000 ahead of our budget. So, and that's a combination of both water sales and our property tax revenue. But, I will say, we budgeted our water sales at 560 million gallons. We're running in the 590s. And we are, and what's interesting is last year, we ended the year at 552 million gallons. So we've seen, pickup. Largely, it's been, there's residential, and we've had a big pop in ag this year, too. So anyway, so then we've had the cost savings, from, our expense side with, particularly in personnel, but also electricity, on water and electricity. Even though our water sales are up and we're using local sources, so we haven't had to use the San Francisco water, and we've saved a couple $100,000 on that front. So it's good news.
So we're doing well. So we're well ahead of our budget projections at this point.
Right, yes.
So hopefully that'll drop out into the reserve, to help us meet our goal.
Right.
So the bottom line is we've contributed 3.139 to CIP and reserves.
Right.
Great. Great.
Any other comments, questions?
I think it's good news.
No, absolutely.
Amazing news. Nice to
We're
see.
doing well.
Had a couple of years where it looked a
I
little
guess
shaky.
the later rain is gonna probably help keep Denniston full for a little
Right.
longer. We get more rain too, so it may go further up in terms of.
We'll see.
Unless
Hope
late
so.
needs a lot.
We're still far below normal rainfall.
Yeah, we don't
So
usually get it
it's
this
a-
late. I mean, but
It's
we're
a
still-
dry year by any criterion.
Okay. But we're still doing okay? We'll see. Well, no.
We are.
Alrighty, and now the draft fiscal year 218-19 and 219-20 operations budget and capital 218-219 to 227-228 capital improvement program and draft fiscal year 2018-19 financing plan and proposed rate increase. Okay,
I think we're on item C,
which one?
budget timeline.
Did I miss that?
Yeah.
Budget process timeline.
But there's
There's no
change from what we,
Well, we still-
I'm sorry, excuse me.
yeah, we're
There's
still,
so many 2018-19s.
Yeah. I think,
It happens,
we're
happens
on-
every year.
we're on track. We haven't had any changes to the timeline.
Okay.
We are meeting next Monday, and then
At what
for a
time?
special
9?
meeting at 9 a.m. And then we will, and we hope at that time we can also do the 218 approval as well, so. And then we'll discuss again the budget at the next board meeting, the next two board meetings, and the June board meeting being the hearing.
Okay.
Okay.
Any comments on the agenda? Timeline? Okay. And now item D, which I will not repeat.
That's fine. Okay, so, you want to go to, so, since the last board meeting, we've, made some changes to the budget. largely I upped the revenue projections. Given our trends in increasing water sales, we went ahead and moved the budget from 580 million gallons to 590 million gallons, which, I think, we feel pretty comfortable with, although, it is, we've had this big jump since last year. But, the result of this was, we added another 159,000 to the contribution to CIP and reserves. And so it's taking a little pressure off off the budget and off the revenue requirements for next year. We also did a few things with, I modified the COLA increase. We had gotten the CPI, and I made some cost adjustments to, given that we had, we're increasing our water, our water sales assumptions. There are costs associated with San Francisco Water and some other, just a few odds and ends, chemicals and various things. But at this point, we're, if you want to go on to the next slide, we're, before we even, start thinking about, rate increase, we're budgeting that we'll have 3.3 million going to, as, contribution to our CIP and reserves. Our CIP next year is planned to be 3.6 million, and our average is 3.6 million. So we're still, we're not covering everything, all the CIP, but it is, we're in, you can see that the change in water sales, for instance, between the 17-18 budget, where we budgeted 560 million gallons, and this year, this upcoming budget, 18-19 draft, we have a 644,000 increase, so, on sales. So, it's.
Before any rate
Yeah,
increase.
before any rate increase, yes.
So basically, we've got 300,000 that we're short on the CIP, plus whatever we went in the reserves, to
Right.
increase our reserves toward our goal.
Before a rate increase.
Before a rate,
Before rate.
before a rate increase. So,
Do we have any, is there a number that goes with what we would anticipate our reserve, increasing our reserves to meet our goal? Like, how much would we need to increase our reserves in order to stay on target to achieve our?
well, we're going to show that later
That's
on.
part of our modeling
The-
exercise.
Yes.
Hang on, I'm coming.
Part of the modeling.
So, with our operating expenses, we're still saving 205,000 over the prior year's budget, even though we're projecting, higher water, sales. So, we're in good shape. And if you look at going up to the next slide, and, I've shown this slide, with a couple, the last couple board meetings, but I've made a few tweaks to it, reflecting that now, we're planning 590 million gallons. That's what we planned in 2015-16 at $1 million differential in our budget for water purchases, yes. So, this, demonstrates actually what Denniston will be able to bring for us. We're getting a great return on our investment with all the, improvements we've made to Denniston and with the Bridgeport pipeline, and so this is, and the other point is, which we have discussed in the past too, that is in 2015-16, we budgeted only 50 million gallons being the annual production out of Denniston. Now we're budgeting over 200 million gallons. So we just hope that we don't have a dry year, but, that we're able, to continue using Denniston, but Denniston's been good to us, so,
Well, we have a dry year and we're using it like crazy.
yeah. So,
We're 10 inches at least behind normal average rainfall. And it's producing water like it's going out of style.
I think that, time will tell, though, in August, July and August. So,
Yep.
In terms of, we've been able to keep using Denniston, but we had a wet year last year, so, too.
But even
So,
that year was pretty dry.
Yeah. So,
Nothing like the good old days, remember the good old days? 33 inches, back when loaf of bread was a nickel.
so I have already discussed these slides in prior meetings. I don't know if you have any, questions on our operating expenses. Basically, most of our expenses are either flat or I included some kind of an inflation factor. So, the other, any questions on the 18-19 budget?
I guess I was surprised at the COLA increase of 3.8%. I wouldn't have expected it to be that high. Is that housing? Or-
It's
Housing's gone
it's
for-
the San Francisco Bay Area CPI.
Yeah, but is housing included in, as part of that, do you know? I mean, I know we have nothing to do with that number, making up that number, but.
I think so.
Yeah, it's urban.
I was just trying to figure out what would drive it so high. It just seemed really high to me.
Yeah, it's we have the CPIW, which for the urban wage earners. So, yeah, I'm assuming there's a combination.
It was about 3 last year, 2.8.
3.3
3.3,
last
yeah.
year.
Is that high?
Yeah.
So it's been running between 3 and 4.
Okay. So, we also prepared a draft 2019-2020 budget. After our board meeting last month, we discussed going ahead and creating, a year 2 budget. Yes.
So before, I understand all the assumptions or things we've seen before. Am I correct that the total contributions to CFP and reserves, 5713, for 1819 would be $3,315,474 without an increase in rates?
Without, correct.
Just checking. Confirm that. All righty, now we're doing 1920.
So, based on our discussions at the last board meeting, I went ahead and prepared the second-year budget. And so this could be support if the board chooses to go ahead and adopt 2 years of rate increases. So key assumptions on this budget, we had, I included a 1% increase in volume of our sales volume, which, assuming that we're bumped up and now we flatten out. We also, we've heard from San Francisco that they're not going to have a rate increase for 2 years. So hopefully that holds, but, so we don't have, we have we have a 0% increase for San Francisco in this budget. We did include some inflationary adjustments to electricity, chemicals, of course, personnel costs, so.
On page 15, we've got $500,000 for fire hydrant replacements. We're anticipating a massive spat of people driving into our fire hydrants.
That's on our, you're on our CIP?
Yeah.
Page 15.
Yeah, he's not
Yes,
there.
you're ahead.
She's there. We're getting,
Both doing it.
so you're just doing the comparisons now,
We'll catch up.
right?
Okay,
5 more pages will be okay.
sorry.
No problem.
So what did you put in for 1920 cost of living index, those?
For salaries, I put in 3.8%, but we do
Same
have
thing.
some step increases, also.
Right, but you use basically the
Just
same.
Right, I
moved it
use
across.
basically the same,
CPI.
assumptions. So this slide shows a comparison of all 3 years' budgets. So you can see that, we're going, we're, in terms of our, revenue, we're having a bump up on the 2018-19 budget, with the increase from going from 560 million gallons to 590, keeping it, just a small increase in sales going into 1920. Our expenses, we have our operating expenses year over year between 17-18, 18-19 are 2.1%, and adding, and then 3.4% for, some inflationary increases. So,
God, that's great, having the 3 years. That's really helpful.
I mean, the approved budget in 17-18 was 2.745 contribution, but we're actually going to do 3.4 or 5 or something.
Yeah.
aren't we? So they're not unlike.
no,
The next 3
We've
years are
really,
almost equivalent to what we're expecting this year.
right.
Okay.
So, just looking at our risk, and, looking at 2 years, we could, we could go into a drought, but we're not there right now. So, that is, a question of where, if we had reduced water sales. We had the pop, up this year. Last year we had the pop down in the other direction. So it is something that, we'll see if we hold in our sales. So the other piece is that if we need to buy from San Francisco, if we don't get the production that we're estimating that we're going to get. So we have not made any changes since we first introduced the CIP, back in the, January, February timeframe. We are still holding that it's, our 10-year is 32.7, our 5-year is 18.1 with an average of 3.6 million, per year. Basically, our outlook, as we talk about, is really 5-year focused. It's hard to see out in the 5 to 10 years. This was, I've shown this slide, in the last, couple of board meetings, that over the last 10 years, we actually have spent $32.9 million on capital. So we're in the same ballpark, but those are old, dollars, not the current year's dollars. So, and this is the page 15 that you were talking about. And in terms of the note on the hydrants, I might let James speak to that.
Certainly. We've increased the hydrant replacement for the next, I believe, 6 years to 140,000 from 40. And that was basically my recommendation to John Davis's, because we have a lot of dry barrel hydrants throughout the system that are problematic, especially the Vanguard / Clows that are kind of semi-dry barrel. When I was in Marina, when we did a hydrant replacement project, we found several of them that were broken closed, so they wouldn't work at all.
Yeah, no, dry barrels are silly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So Sean's a little disappointed he can't rebuild them anymore because he really
No,
likes them.
I'm in support. We do that internally.
Yes.
Brilliant, okay.
Yeah, from the flange up. not having
Perfect,
touched it.
okay. All right, no, that makes sense.
So, in terms of any of the other projects, do you have any other questions? We're, our big,
So,
yeah.
Did the 19 budget, what, I'm sorry, on the capital increase, is that reflected in the CIP spreadsheet, or is that was in there before? I don't remember. The extra 500K? But
Oh, that's already included.
it was already included?
Yeah.
Oh, you're
we
just
haven't
saying,
made-
you're just describing what was already in there,
Yes.
the 500, okay,
Yeah,
previously.
yeah.
It
So
was already in there.
we haven't made any changes.
Okay, fine, no, it wasn't something you just added to the capital plan, I got you.
Yeah.
Got
I
you.
mean, the big, the big push with our CIP,
Right.
is we're going to be doing, we're projecting to be doing a lot of tank refurbishments. So, and we So, that's where you were seeing the big increases. Also, we went through this year and upped some of the financial, projections because we're seeing construction costs going up on CIP.
Ken?
The tank refurbishments that we've done over the past few years, have they basically come in a timely way? I mean, if they predicted 3 months or 5 months or 6 months, have they been finishing in those kind of timeframes?
No.
Not the
No.
last one.
Remember, not tank 3, but.
No,
But Ken,
Have any of them gone over a year?
no.
So they've all ended up being paid for in the year that they were budgeted as CIP projects, right?
Well, even though they don't take a year, they can span,
Span 2 years.
they can span fiscal years, but
Right. And the ones that we're looking at in the future, are they larger than one-year projects? Are they projects that look like they'll take more time, or?
it's hard to imagine that a tank project would take more than a year.
it shouldn't, yeah.
So the odds are good that we'll spend the money in a timely fashion. It won't be one of those, get a permit, try to get a permit, wait 2
No,
years.
it's
mess
really
around.
straightforward stuff.
Uh-huh.
We went around and toured the tanks and looked at them, and they're in dire need of the work, and the work should be done.
Well,
They're
some-
very
some-
clean projects, you know, they're very contained. And we've struggled with under-maintained tanks, so they really, really need it. And the problem is the contractors come in and then they say, oh, once now that we've cleaned it, you've got damage that has to be repaired, which makes it a bigger project. But that repair gets done timely and the tank gets put back online. So I don't see any of these as lingering drag-ons. And the job they've been doing is gorgeous.
And how many $1 million worth of tank renovation are we anticipating?
$5.5 million there.
I was gonna say, if you look at page 16, she's got a whole
It's all there.
list.
About 5.5.
5.5? And will those are gonna
Well,
happen over
so
how
on-
many?
Yeah, because on page 16, she's got 2.1 for Alves, 1.4 for El
1.6.
Granada, 1.1 for Half Moon Bay, oh,
1.6.
this pipeline,
5.5.
850 for tank
5.5.
2.
But we've done.
Oh, I have from the high school, I figured
Huh?
that out.
5.5 is
Yeah.
not-
And what time frame? That's over 5 years?
Over 5 years.
It's, it's spread on the sheet, but
Thank you.
we pushed them, we've made them a little more higher priority.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah.
Water supply development, okay, I know what that is, now I have to look at the plan. 2.3, that's Sanborn Center and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Dentist and upgrade, right?
Talk about an unknown
Because
moving
that's a
target,
very,
though.
it's not real specific, so okay.
Yeah, isn't
It's
that
in there,
water
it's just-
supply spending, that could be all over the map in terms of when that gets the trigger pulled, isn't it?
Well, we have it, we don't have anything significant in the 18-19 fiscal year. We're anticipating that during the 18-19 fiscal year, we will finally, after a 16-year wait, get our renewed permit, that our petition for extension of time to perfect our water rights will be granted by the State Water Resources Control Board. They've said the order and the new permit have been drafted. It's working its way through the bureaucracy. When I asked, will this happen in 2018, they said, yes, it'll happen in 2018.
No.
So it just needs the approval of the executive director, whoever that is now. They've changed, they've had some personal changes that have slowed them down. The person that worked on our permit has moved to a different role. Not retired, but moved to a different role, so, but that's
We're retired.
the way it goes with the State Water Resources Control Board Division of Water Rights. It's not a new story. So,
This one, this water
Oh,
supply.
It'd be
Sanborn
nice
Center.
to have a
Oh, yeah, okay.
extraction technique.
so we have spending ramping up in the next couple of years for permitting and design. And then right now, we have the expenditure for diversion pipeline, San Vicente diversion pipeline and Denniston Reservoir restoration in 2021 and 21-22.
But that's going to require permitting, right?
Yes.
So that, who knows how long that will take? Do we have any sense of that? or-
How long it's been going on?
16 so far.
And counting. And don't we have some timelines in terms of getting our volume of water from that source up so that we can
You know,
make it viable?
when I first started working on this, we had until December 31st, 2016. That seemed like kind of a, well, if the petition that we applied for in 2004 was granted, we expected we'd have until 2016. Well, their process dragged on, and we went right past December 2016. We were thrilled to learn that they were willing to extend us until 2026. They asked us, well, do you think you can do it by 2026? And we were concerned that going beyond that extension length would change it and make it less likely to be approved. So we said, yeah, we can do it by 2026. That seemed like a long time, but now we will have used up 2 years of that 10 years. So we're already the 2026 schedule is starting to feel tight. So we'll want to jump right on this as soon as we get the petition granted.
The two largest components of that are the San Vicente
Yes.
future stuff and the Denniston upgrade.
Well, the Denniston Reservoir restoration.
Right, okay, those are.
Right.
well,
Those are
that's-
somewhat
that's the ma- that's
independent.
the
We
majority of the
probably
two,
will.
three. We don't want to call those out specifically. I mean, it just, big number with no specificity.
Which are the permitting agencies that we'll be working with?
No, I understand, I'm just, the others are more explicit, that's all.
Totally open, back
This
up
is
Golden
just
Gate National
Going to be
Parks.
brought out to the
Or
public.
Michigan.
Right.
They may not question
There's
it.
fish,
That's
sea
whatever you
fish,
think.
county.
Make it by 2026. Jesus, we can't even get
One
a
realist
permit
here.
16 years.
But, yeah, no, I
Just-
agree, but,
We can't even get an extension to our permit for
I mean, those are.
16 years,
but
so how are we going
the
to
ma-
get this
The majority of
done?
work doesn't begin until 2020, 21.
James is going to do it.
Yeah, assuming we.
So,
get
I mean, it's
permits.
not in the next 2 years anyway.
No, I'm just,
It's not part of the next 2-year thing that
I'm
we're
just
looking at.
suspicious
is-
of the permitting time, that's
Right.
all, along with what we've already
No, I agree with
experienced.
you. It's only taking, well, the,
Bureaucracy
while
at
the
its
capital
finest.
expenditures are average 3.2, and that the next 2 years, as it turns out, have the highest.
Right.
Two capital expenditures, 4.9 and 4.7. So that has some impact on the amount of CIP expenses we'll have in those 2 years, which I'm sure you've taken into account in your financing
Yeah,
plan.
actually, for next year, we're planning on 3.6 million, and if you, then 4.9 next year, and then it goes another,
I'm
we'll
sorry.
get to that.
The year after that,
Yeah.
I got it, okay.
Yeah.
Next year's
so-
3.6.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I'm
so,
looking
but
at-
it is, we are front loaded on our,
Mm-hmm.
you know, on our projections with with year 5 being 1.3 million, so it is, you know, but, so we'll get to that, but that is
Okay.
something that, you know, we should think about, and, you know, because things do come up, and, yeah, so. So we'll move on to our financing plan.
Terrific.
So this is a slide that our rate consultant, Raf Tellis, created. But, you know, we think it's a good slide that shows really, you know, what our rate study process is. So, you know, we started off in our rate setting mode where, you know, we're getting our, you know, we you know, did our budget, our CIP, and we talked about our policies. And, you know, really, you know, and then we've moved in now to what we call our, you know, financial plan, which is, you know, evaluate, you know, we're considering all of our, you know, our financing options, and, you know, what revenue requirement do we really need from setting our rates? So we really need to, you know, establish our revenue requirement first, understand what we need for cash flow, and our, our reserves, and to cover our CIP. And then at, when we've established that, then we go into our rate design.
So, in the AWWA Journal, I want to say in the last month or two, they had a stunning article saying that the industry standard method of evaluating customer impact was significantly flawed, and they've got a new plan. I've read it 3 times, and I get it, that what they're doing makes a lot of sense. I don't fully understand it, but I think I'd certainly like to know what the consultant what their take on that is, and what they're basically saying, for those of you who may not have had a chance to read it yet. What they're saying is that it's got more to do with how this takes a bite out of the citizens' earned hours. So if you look at how much a citizen is earning as their sort of a take-home pay analysis, and then say what bite of that is the water bill, that's a fair way of looking at it, versus if you say that, well, this leaves this is two-thirds of our citizens can pay this with a very modest impact, and that is how they portrayed the classic way of doing it, is saying, well, most of our residents can afford this, so we don't worry about it. And I will be very blunt, this was driven out of the Flint debacle of looking and saying, okay, we were charging too many of our constituents in Flint couldn't afford water. And so, to me, I was intrigued that it was a fresh way of looking at what is affordability. And part of what I know that we hear every year from our constituents when we do have rate increase discussions is we do have a group that feels really stressed about this. And I thought this might be an interesting opportunity for us to look at it, the affordability from a different model.
I think you'll be excited with the change in the analysis this year, too. You might be really excited with what the consultants came up with.
Good.
It addresses your concern from a different approach, I think.
Which we'll go into at our workshop on Monday.
On Monday.
I think you'd be really excited.
Where is this new thing, where is it in its evolution? It's just
So,
something they just posed as an option that they would like to look into, or it's already cast? Is it
So what it was targeted was California water utilities
Right.
are struggling with drought,
No,
loss of revenues for drought.
but this is not something they're gonna implement it's gonna take a while to get to go.
So different water utilities can implement whatever customer impact analysis they choose.
Okay.
And so it's not a regulatory
Okay,
thing.
that's what they-
It's a case
It's
of
a way of
how-
looking at.
How do the
How do they do
customer,
it?
how does the board of directors
I
evaluate
see.
whether
Okay.
what they're doing is reasonable for
Okay.
their citizens?
So we're doing that in a different sort of way, I suspect, by having.
So
our
that's
consultant-
actually, that's my question.
Yeah.
Is, are we looking at the conventional method, and are we looking at the method proposed in the latest article
I
in
think-
AWWA?
I think what I understood of this, up to this point, was we're looking at.
That's a perfect question
That's
for
a
our rate
perfect question.
consultants
Yes,
at the
exactly.
workshop next Monday.
Yeah.
Right,
Interesting.
and I don't mean for it to be answered now, I'm merely
no, I agree.
saying, hey, can we
Okay.
ask that
So you
question?
can, we
Right.
should ask that.
And, I mean, we have, as the background, we do have this cost of service analysis that we have to be able to have for an administrative record and support for our rates, so.
I guess it
so
is a
you're
little bit
balancing,
regulatory, yeah.
so there is, so you
Yeah.
do balance, but,
Yeah.
the issues, but I think Raftellus has been, they've been very refreshing, and
Yeah.
I think, so I think they have some new, good ideas, and so.
Okay?
So where we're at right now, this is another look, and it's, we're going into this rates, into this timeline that, we need to set the revenue requirement. and then determine the rate structure. So that's what we're working on right now. So, and, what we'll, be jumping into is looking at, the model again in terms of what we're looking at for revenue requirement. So,
So we have to, in order to get to where we need to be on Monday, where we're looking at structure, we have to sort of come to grips with the requirements
right.
tonight. Is that correct? Okay, just checking. So we have something
I
to
mean, we
discuss.
have flexibility.
Yeah,
but
we
it
do have
needs to
some
be-
flexibility
yeah.
if we're not all on the same page. I understand, okay.
So, again, in terms of looking at our revenue requirement, we need to look from a perspective of how much do we need to, recover from our rates to fund our budget, our debt service, our CIP, and contribute to reserves. So, and this, some of the key questions, we have is, our CIP dollars and timing and spending, and, right now we're considering, we've made the assumption that we're going on a pay-as-you-go for capital spending. We're not considering getting loans right now for our CIP. But, as we discussed, we do have some capacity on that front if we needed to borrow, but at this point, we're not considering that in this look. So, and, as we've discussed in the last couple of years, we've said that, our targeted reserve balance should be at the beginning of the year. And we have, cash flow, we have, 25% of our operating expenses, which is really 1.5, bill cycles, so of having money in the bank just to cover our bills. We have our debt service payments, which really come up, in the early part of our fiscal year. So, our front end of, we have 900,000 that we have to pay out in August. So, and then we have, ideally, it would be nice to have all our CIP money in the bank so that we can spend it, and we don't have to, we don't have to hold off and delay the spending if we have the money available. So this, so if we go with, that's our target, that would mean that we want to have 6.8 million in the bank at this point. But we're more on the, right now, we're more on the, 5 million range. So we have, so this is a picture of the model, and we looked at we started to look at the model last month. And we can get into, into the actual spreadsheet and make changes to it, so, but
That's a
I.
relief. That's a relief that we can modify them all.
Yeah.
But we, well, so in terms of starting out to look at, rate increase, we, since we actually had this, we've had this jump in revenue, we started off the look, for tonight, looking at, a 4% increase. So and so in this, the first graph shows the smooth version of using the average CIP of, 3.6 million a year. The second graph shows the not so smooth version. So that uses the actual timing of our spend, which is at the bottom of, saying that, we're 3.6 this year, nearly 5 million next year, 4.7 the following year. So.
The second graph is without the effect of the Feldman factor. I think the first graph is more representative of the
The smooth,
Feldman factor.
yeah, we won't spend the big bucks.
It tends to stretch out a little bit, right? So the dip that you see might or might not happen
No,
now.
can we spend the 497 and the 47 in those 2 years, as we have projected, although they move to the right based on the normal
Right.
experience we've had? Although in the last 10 years, we did 3.2, there are a couple of years where we actually spent pretty heavily, I think. But
Yeah, in the last,
The last 10.
Yeah, well, in the
What
last
about
even
this
2 or
one?
3 years.
This year now, we're going to be at 4.
We'll end
4
up the
million maybe?
year close, We have $1 million still to go, but we'll end up the year close to $5 million, I think.
We're counting on you, James.
Yeah, 4,990
You think
Yeah.
we'll
was
be
the projection in this
We-
month's.
We're still behind.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we can
Or
go,
something.
but we can certainly go to the model and play around and do whatever kind of, changes you want to look at. We just,
when you say
just for a sec-
4% per year? Increase, which,
This
for
was,
next year?
yeah, that's what just for this view, I used 4% per year all the way through, so,
All the way through.
the 5 years.
But what we're suggesting as the increase for the next 2 years, which we'll cover in a single 218 process,
Mhm.
would be 4% per year. That is the long expected tail of our, or handle of our hockey stick. For years, as we've increased rates, we've said, well, someday we would get to the point where we would have rate increases marginally greater than inflation. We would be able to fund our capital program from revenue and have adequate reserves, and we're getting closer, we're getting much closer.
So
Amen.
if we do 4.4 and then 4.44 all the way down, that's when we get that little belly on the non-smooth curve.
Right.
Okay. But then it could be more expensive going forward on CIP, we don't know that.
Right.
So you have your model thing there, so.
Yep.
Yeah, I just show 2 4s, because I'm more excited about the next 2 years being equivalent or the same, so people have a little insight to what they can expect, and then maybe see what happens after that.
Now, it's got a question.
If you do 4.4 and then say, you have to go up a little the
That's the right
following year,
one.
you have some latitude in going to 5 the following year or something.
So, yeah,
Because you wouldn't have that belly even on the non-smooth if the option were there to go more than 4.
Well, the non-smooth doesn't have a dip.
No, when?
Right.
See, when you do what?
That's the, I'm sorry,
mean-
the smooth one doesn't have a dip.
No,
This
but
is
the
smooth.
non-smooth.
Yeah.
I meant the non, I'm just, do 4.4 with the non-smooth
That's
next
four-
2 years, and then go to 5, for example.
That's this is 445.
Yeah, try that.
4.4.
okay.
That's what's in there.
Oh, I meant to, what got,
What's that?
Doesn't make
Okay,
a big
yeah,
difference.
no,
So this is all 4s.
that's fourth, that's where,
Okay, now,
that
if
was
you-
what, inlet was what,
so what about do 5 in the 3rd year? I'm just, just see what's going.
No, that's where it was.
yeah.
And then 5 again, for example. Just checking.
And
So it, the belly doesn't come up much. So if you go 4.4, the risk is there that if you do spend at your capital plan budgets, that you'll have a belly in the curve. Yes.
If you were to take that same model and go out to the year where we're projecting 1.3 something,
Yeah, that's year
Yeah.
5, yeah.
can you plug in a 3.6 in that year?
we'd end up,
So keep the 4s.
2.3 below this square.
Yeah, it would be.
So it'd be right,
So it would be at our target, wouldn't it?
no, we'd be well below.
It'd be below the target.
Right.
Yeah. Do you have the ability to do that in the model?
I do, but you
Okay.
have to go to another spreadsheet.
Because
Well-
we're
I can do that.
discussing this concept of trying to spend 3.6 a year. That's going to be our average based on the overall.
Right.
So I'm more comfortable looking at,
The belly.
the average spending
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to trying to plug in the numbers that we think we're going to spend.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm not disagreeing. I think the question is, do we consider the average smooth curve as our goal, and take the risk? And so there may be a little risk if in fact we do hit it hard one year, but it wouldn't break the bank because we know the belly is still going to be up in the $5 million range anyway, even at 4%,
Yes,
even at 4% for the next
that's right.
10 years, right?
And it's uniform, which is nice.
Yeah.
People can count on it and plan on it.
Yeah,
I think the other thing is
I like that.
we can always,
Me too.
if it's a good enough project, we can borrow money for it.
Yeah.
That's not out of the question.
So it would make sense for us to say, look, our plan is the average about 3.6. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that because things change and it
Yeah.
may be less and it may be more.
Yeah.
But we have a better sense of where we could be if that happened, and if not, we have the options later to
Yeah.
raise the rate.
Right.
I
Up
love,
to 2 years.
I love the consistency of
Yes.
it. I think it's gonna make it more predictable for the community.
Mm-hmm. So, this builds in, of course, the fact that we've done well in the last couple of years. We've got another couple that look pretty solid, and it shows that we're addressing the fact that the rates, we're trying to get them to a manageable area, a manageable place for the community, and we're trying to take advantage of what we've earned, of what we've done so far. I mean, that'd be probably something they would be surprised to see, 4%. They haven't seen that for
Well, we had 3.8?
Nine.
Nine?
But I don't know if
3.9
they'd
last
expect
year.
that again.
Right.
At one time, we thought that was gonna be a unique occurrence at the time.
Right, well, the increase in sales gives us a good tailwind.
Right, a good
Right.
story.
Mhm.
Is that-
I have a good question. So in the out years, like the third, fourth, and fifth year, I assume in expenses you've factored in increases from SFPUC?
Yes.
At least what they've given us so far.
Best guess.
That also changes in response to sales.
Yeah.
So what,
The main reason we're having no rate increase from SFPUC for the next couple of years is the increase in sales and the balancing, the large balance in what they call the balancing account, which is what SFPUC owes to the wholesale customers as a result of higher sales.
Ken, any other comments?
Oh, the only other question that I had is, if we were extremely aggressive and we didn't really, care how people reacted to our idea, how much of an increase would we have to have this year to hit 6.8? What rate increase?
Let's
would
go
we-
back to
With
the non-smooth,
unsmooth
let's
curve
go
here.
back to
You
this
mean with
one.
the unsmooth
Yeah,
curve?
to jump to 6.8 in the first year, what would the percentage increase?
Well, we'd have to collect 1.2 million, it's about 12% just for that. So a percent is about 100,000, so, to answer your question. Well, 16, so
So it
that would
take-
be 12 on top of just the basic inflation.
Right. So I think the interesting part about that isn't, it's not a recommendation on my part, but I think that it's interesting to be able to say that we have a target of 6.8 million in the bank, and that actually, if we wanted to get to that point, it would require a 16% rate increase in 1 year, in the first year. And so we've decided that that's a target. It's not our ultimate goal. We're not willing to do it at any cost. We're not, interested in causing people hardship. But it should be, I think, communicated that that's really what we're working toward, right? And so I think that this is a much nicer way to present that
The
goal.
smooth curve, yes.
Yeah. And so I think it's exciting. I think it's a, wonderful proposal. And, I think the only risk, again, is if we spend too much money one year,
Yeah.
and I think we can get that,
Well,
so,
we lose water revenue
yeah.
significantly.
I don't think that's gonna happen. I think more people are coming to the coast.
I think
Not
there's
less.
people moving in, I agree. We get them. Chris, any comment?
Well, no, we voted for some pretty steep price increases over the time that I've been here in anticipation of this day.
Mhm.
And, I think every one of those price increases were certainly justified. The money went into infrastructure and so now maybe we can, bear the fruits of our
Right?
hard work and customers bearing with us on our rate increases and in anticipation of this. I mean, I'm happy to see this, to have been here long enough to see the end result of our
The efforts.
rate increases over time.
Thanks. Glenn, anything else?
No, I'm good.
Marty? Okay, so what do you need from us at this point to agree that this smooth curve with the 4% for the next couple of years has to be our, how do we send this off to this next meeting on Monday? What do we have to do, anything? or just-
The numbers we've suggested are the ones plugged into the rate model.
Okay,
So that means, given your apparent assent. We don't have to send our rate consultants scrambling back to do a revision of their model
Okay.
before next Monday. But you won't really make this decision until our Proposition 218 hearing, which happens on June 12th. That's our current schedule. At the regular meeting of June 12th, you'll approve the budget and the CIP.
Right,
Well, you'll approve, we're proposing to approve 2 years' worth of budgets.
right.
And 2 years' worth of rate increases, and that's what'll be in the 218 notice, which you'll approve if all goes to,
And that says
according to
not
schedule next
exceed
Monday.
rates.
Pardon?
And not to exceed rates for the 2
Yes.
years, right?
Right.
Subject
So-
to the public
Until
having a
June.
chance.
So, next Monday, after our discussion of rates and keeping tonight's discussion in mind, you would consider issuing a 218 notice for a maximum rate increase of 4%, or you could do that. That's not a decision on the rate increase. You can't make that until after the 218 notice period and 218 hearing on June 12th.
For the 2 years.
Yes.
Okay, and then so Monday's meeting gets to be a hard look at the structure that will be proposed as a result of this model, the numbers in this model being set.
Right, so the fact that we have proposed a 4% rate increase doesn't mean that every customer will see his or her bill increased by 4%.
If- Based on what rate structure.
Some
we-
bills, yes, depending on how much water people use, given our tiered rate structure and the way the cost of service analysis has distributed the cost across all of our customers. Some customers will experience decreases in their water bills at the same level of usage that they have now, and some will have increases about the average, and some will have increases more than the average.
As opposed to using the same structure that presently exists. If we use the same structure that we have now, everybody would expect to see 4% increases. If we use today's structure, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
And what we're gonna come up with next week is a new approach to the structure, which may change what people see in their increases as opposed to what they would have seen with this structure, that's all. It may
Yes.
not be 4% for some, and it may be more than 4% for others.
Yes.
I think that's where I'm going with this. So
Yes.
that people are clear that that's the nature of the structure that we are
Yes.
going to look at and discuss on Monday. And then
Right.
maybe approve or ask to be looked at further. We can do that too if we don't get warm and fuzzy with it.
Yes.
Correct? We'll have a
Yes.
little time to reconnoiter if in fact we can't get warm and fluffy, but that's okay, I understand, good. So we're excited about the 4%.
At the
2 years.
Yeah, that's great.
Any other comments? Okay, I guess that, good work on getting this together and making it very positive in terms of its effect on the community. Next on the agenda is the Assistant General Manager report.
So PMI has left town, our Professional Meters Inc. They, actually, they completed 5,240 installations.
A mile worth.
Yep. And we do have some installs that we still need to do ourselves. We elected to do, the fire meters ourselves, really, which just means that we need to put a new meter head in the antenna on those meters. So we didn't see that it was, that we really needed PMI to do that. We have around 300 other meters that we need to install, 100 that PMI they weren't able to do, and then we have some newer meters that we just need to put the antenna on, and then some other odd sizes. So we're getting there, and we're starting to see some great data. During the month of March, we spoke to over 55 customers about leaks. So, and we're getting very positive response. So,
Good, no, it sounds,
200
Sounds
gallons
exciting.
an hour.
Have we tried to plant an article in the review about how we're contact? I mean, it's just, it'd be nice if they reported some good news about a public agency on this coast. And we're about the only agency that can offer some positive news.
I think we can think about that in a couple months or, 2
Yeah.
or 3 months as we have to get our, we're a little early, so we just want to make sure that we're.
Well,
we
we want
understand all
to plant the
glitches.
seed. I mean, this
Yeah.
sounds like a public agency really doing a public service, and I'd be hard pressed to
Yeah.
come up with a better example.
So,
Okay, so the water smart application, the ones that you're gonna use to do the
we are.
monitoring are gonna be a little further out yet in terms of the.
Yeah, we're still kicking the tires right now, so.
We're going to do
yeah.
we're going to do some public outreach. We'd like our customers, ultimately, our goal is to have our customers self-manage using the information we're able to provide. Meanwhile, we're a little bit concerned about the possibility that we will give our customers greater expectations than may be realistic. Like if your toilet handle sticks, you'll get a call from CCWD in the morning.
It has to be.
Some people are getting that now, and it's great because it saves you a lot of money on your water. Not every, but we don't have the resources to do that for everybody. We're kind of in experimental mode. When we get the portal rolled out, and we've been experimenting with that, you'll actually be able to go in and say, well, let me know when my water use exceeds some percentage of the normal value. And it sends you a text. I mean, the next day, if your water use exceeds your set point, it'll send you a text and say, hey, check for a leak. And that's what we want our customers to do. We won't have the resources to sit there. Every day's leak report has about 130, 140 potential leaks on it, ranging, and I think the threshold now is about 3 gallons per hour. Well, 3 gallons per hour at our rates, assume a unit of water costs roughly $10. A gallon per hour is a unit per month. So if you have a 3 gallon per hour leak, which is kind of the lowest one we look at, that's a $30 a month. So it's a significant amount of money. But we have people that have, 50 gallon an hour
Wow.
leaks. So, yeah, or 200 gallon an
200
hour.
gallon.
Yeah,
When
right.
will the remainder of our meters be done, you think? The ones that are left, approximately. I'm just-
I think that, 300 will be finished in the next, probably, I would assume 2-3 months. The fire services, the fire meters, though, no, but I don't.
I mean, the meters for people.
Yeah, the people meters will be done in the next, what would we say? 3 months. 3 months.
Okay, so and when will the water portal, or when will the water smart portal be ready?
We hope, we're working on, kicking the tires with the data. We had a few data issues, so we want to make sure that it's ready. What we will do is to, pilot it, and I will, certainly when it's ready, we will give you all access so that you can, work with it as well. So we
And
hope
we've
that-
checked, and none of you has a big leak, so you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think, 2 months? I'm just trying to. I'm not trying to.
I feel like that. I'm anxious if we can make sure everything is working correctly with the program. I'd like to start piloting this in the next couple months. So.
Okay, so
but-
getting back to Ken's assertion that it'd be nice to have communications on this. Maybe we can make an agreement, this is April 10th, May, June. Maybe we can make an agreement that by July, we will be prepared to tell the public.
Yeah, I'm excited at it a lot.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I'd like to share this with the
Yeah,
public.
so the new fiscal year, the new water year starts with an announcement in some sort that we've completed all the people meters and that we have a process in place whereby we will be able to do this stuff for you and give us a little recognition for the million plus, how much you spent a lot of money on this, that we have put in 12 years that it took to get here. It's nothing like getting some credit for all the effort you guys have been putting in.
Well, the nice thing about this project is it's something that our customers can relate to.
Right.
That they're getting a direct benefit as
Right.
opposed to
So that's,
putting a new pipeline.
I think we need to
behind.
have some kind of a
More
target that
blessing.
says in July, we'll be ready by July to do that.
4th of July, let's
Yeah,
march it
sounds
out.
good. And then we, you know, all this effort should be rewarded, and we should tell people, and I think we can articulate it, or you could get it articulated in a way that doesn't set expectations beyond what perhaps is realistic in that moment. You agree?
Okay.
We don't have to do.
I see a lot of nodding. We'll take that as the board's direction.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good, good work. Just keep it going, and hopefully we'll be done at the end of the. All right, next on the agenda is Jim Durbin with operations highlights.
Evening, everybody. Some of the monthly highlights. Staff did a very nice job rebuilding the electrical enclosure at Well 1. Got some nice craftsmen in the crew. Hawk instrumentation at the plants was calibrated by Hawk. Those are the benchtop and the turbidimeters, both water plants. Calcon calibrated the flow meters. Treatment staff attended the 2-day Cal Nevada AWWA Symposium Burlingame. Very nice to have local CEUs and be able to go just over the hill for it. No leaks. Source of supply, Pillarcitos and Denniston wells, Denniston Crystal Spring reservoirs is the source of supply in March. We had to sadly turn off the Pillarcitos wells at the end of the month. It's always painful when there's water in the creek. And that's per our permit. We are hoping to be getting Pillarcitos lake water by next week if things go well. Denniston's down right now because the turbidity is up. We want to have Denniston up so that we can pull off Pillarcitos Lake. So that'll save us some money as well. Andrini's moving smoothly through the 2-inch downtown project. He will be mobilizing to Purissima and Miramontes West next, and we're hoping to have that done in June, July before WaterSmart is launched. Any questions? I'm here for you.
Comments, questions on Jim's report? All righty.
Thank you very much.
Things are moving along. And last, but certainly not least, Kathleen with our water resources update.
Back to snow. So it's been a week. They did the snow survey April 2nd, and but I don't think we've gotten much more snowpack since then. This storm's been pretty warm, so I think it's at least from the pictures I've seen and everything, it looks like it's been more rain. But on April 2nd, the statewide average was 52% of normal for that time of year for the 1st of April. So the snowpack is not very good, but last year was very wet, so there was still carryover storage from last year, so that's why overall the state's looking well. And Hetchetchee system in particular is looking better, because I think they got, that central part of Sierra's got a little bit more snow than some of the other areas, so at least for the Hetchetchee system, it's looking very good, and that's why we have no mandatory restrictions. You know, so there's always next year. Then I just have an update on our grant reimbursements. For right now, we're only operating the toilet rebate program, and so this year we got a check for $498, and so that changed our total. So I just gave you an updated table with our totals for grants.
Okay.
So over the years, it's a significant amount, over $40,000.
Yeah, what do you get?
Okay.
Thank you.
Questions for Kathleen? All right. Any requests for future discussions? Future meetings? Okay. That being the case, we will adjourn the meeting. Is that correct? That's it? All right.
It's almost